What's up guys, I'm Roderick, aka Rodman, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at the best weapon from each Souls game. I know that a lot of people do a lot of different builds, but this is all in all going to be the overall best weapon from each Souls game. If you like retro video gaming content, gameplay videos, and anime, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this. So let's get right into the video. So for the best weapon in Demon Souls, and this one was actually quite difficult because the Crescent Falchion, or however you pronounce it, is a really good weapon to the point where any build can use it and it can be really strong. But the Northern Regalia is pretty much the strongest weapon in the game. If you don't know how to get it, you pretty much have to take one sword and another sword and combine them to get this weapon. It is a really good weapon for any type of build, especially if you're going like strength or intelligence and stuff. It's really good, especially in Demon Souls. There's a lot of really good weapons and whatnot, but this one really stands out as the best. It is hard to get though, so it ain't easy to get, but it's definitely rewarding with a good payout. And it has a really nice crit animation as well. As you guys know, the crit animations vary between different weapons and whatnot, but that's my take on what the best weapon is in Demon Souls. I think this weapon, the Northern Regalia, barely edges out the Crescent Falchion, but let's go ahead and move on to Dark Souls 1. So for the absolute best weapon in Dark Souls 1, and honestly, I don't really think it's close. I believe the best weapon in Dark Souls 1 is just the Claymore. This thing does a lot of damage. On top of it doing a lot of damage, it has the best moveset in the entire game, with a lot of jabs and a lot of sweeps, which is really important in Dark Souls 1 because the enemies will try to ambush you. A lot of enemies will try to ambush you, and having the moveset where you can sweep all of them at the same time and stun lock them is very important. On top of the fact you can get the Claymore very early in the game. I'm talking about like the first area of the game really. It's very easy to get to plus 15. It doesn't take a lot of crazy upgrade materials. You can get this item to up to plus 15 before you get to Anor Londo, which is very crazy. Between the moveset and just the absurd damage output this thing does, I definitely think it takes the cake as the best weapon in Dark Souls 1. I was going to say the Zweihander just because you can stun lock a lot of bosses into oblivion, but I'm going to go ahead and go with the Claymore. So let's move on to Dark Souls 2. So this decision was actually really hard to decide, because one thing about Dark Souls 2 is it's so versatile. You can do any type of build that you want, and it's so versatile. There's so many weapons that you can use. There's so many amazing weapons that you can use. And for me, I believe that the Moonlight Greatsword is the best weapon in Dark Souls 2. Why? It's because magic is really broken in this game. On top of it being a really good melee weapon as well, it's perfect for literally any build that you want to do. On top of that, it shoots lasers, and that's really crazy. A sword that shoots lasers, especially when it comes to, you know, Dark Souls 2 and all the iframes. You don't have to get up close and personal. You can decide what kind of playstyle you want to do. It's all in one weapon. You can stay at bay and use your lasers, or you can get up close and personal and use it as a melee greatsword, which I think is really crazy. It's like a two-in-one combo mage strength item. Um, but that's what I believe the best weapon in Dark Souls 2 is. I was going to say the Fume Ultra Great Sword, but let's go ahead and move on to Dark Souls 3. This is pretty hard as well, but I think that it takes the cake. The Fume Ultra Great Sword in Dark Souls 3, I believe, is the best weapon in the game. This thing does too much damage. You can absolutely devour and incinerate these bosses in only a few hits. Its heavy attack is a jab that has a lot of range, and you can really not necessarily cheese a lot of bosses, but it's very good for fighting mobs. It's very good for fighting bosses. The only downside to this weapon is you need a whopping 50 strength to use it, which is a lot. It is the heaviest weapon in the game, but it also pretty much does the most damage in the game per swing. On top of the range that it has, I believe that the Fume Ultra Great Sword is the best weapon in Dark Souls 3. On top of the fact that it's not very difficult to upgrade to +5. You can also mix it with different elements as well to make it do even more damage, which is already crazy. On top of the base damage that it's doing, it has an A in scaling, A in strength scaling, which is crazy for this game. But let's move on to Bloodborne. This also was a really hard choice, but I believe that the best weapon in Bloodborne is the Whirligig Saw. Now, it was neck and neck with the Ludwig's Holy Blade. It was neck and neck. Actually, the Ludwig's Holy Blade was the weapon that I used for pretty much all of Bloodborne. But then you gotta realize that some of the hardest enemies in Bloodborne are beast monsters, and the Whirligig Saw gives you bonus serrated damage of 20% when it's in this two-handed form, which is very, very good. And this is one thing that two things that make the Whirligig Saw extremely good. The fact that you can use it, you can continuously charge it to do a continuous amount of damage, like she's doing right here, which is very, very broken, because that's how you do a consistent amount of damage. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it doesn't take a lot of stamina either. But the thing that makes the Whirligig Saw so crazy, it has an S in strength scaling, and it also scales on intelligence as well, which I believe is absolutely crazy. You can light your weapon on fire two-handed and then incinerate these bosses. I'm talking Orphan, I'm talking the hardest bosses in the game. But that's what I think the best overall weapon is in Bloodborne. So let's move on to Sekiro. So since you pretty much only have one weapon in Sekiro, is the sword that you get at the very beginning of the game, I'm not going to really talk about the Immortal Blade or the sword that you have. I'm going to talk about the prosthetics. There's very, very good prosthetics in the game, but the one that I think is the most useful and the most kind of broken is the Firecracker. I think everybody knows about cheesing every boss in the game with the Firecrackers. The only downside to the Firecracker is that bosses can get used to it, and it will decrease their stun time the more that you use it. But the combo of using the Firecracker and the double Ichimonji will literally melt any boss's poise gauge. But that's what I think the best prosthetic is in Sekiro. The umbrella is very good because it allows you to block a lot of stuff. And the flamethrower is very good as well, where you're going against monsters like Guardian Ape, anything that's a beast or an animal. But the Firecracker definitely takes the cake though. So finally, let's move on to Elden Ring. So for the best weapon in Elden Ring, I'm sorry, I just have to still say Rivers of Blood. Just because you can melt any boss in the game at Rivers of Blood, no matter how much they nerf it in PvE and PvB, I guess the term is. Rivers of Blood is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. You can still one-shot any boss in the game with this weapon, to the point where I believe that Rivers of Blood is probably the most nerfed weapon that is in eldenring. This weapon is completely absurd for dexterity builds, almost to the point where it's not even fair to use this weapon. I know a lot of my friends make fun of me because I had a hard time beating Melania, but I was like, hey, you use Rivers of Blood. I don't want to hear you say anything, bro. You use the most broken weapon in the game. It is the best weapon in the game, though. It has some of everything. It has range. It has very good abilities. It's just overall the best in the game. But me personally, I'm a Radon greatsword user. I didn't even use this weapon at all, and I never will, because it's just too broken. But that's gonna wrap it up for this video, y'all. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this. And if there's any weapon that I overlooked, please let me know down in the comments below. Ramen out. Peace.